So as Antaranga Prabhu shared, the topic is actually Gopal, the protector of cows. Now, how many of you have been coming to the manor for at least 1 month? At least 1 month? Okay, a few of you. What was special about last month, or the last Vedic calendar month, which ended a few days ago? Damodar month, otherwise known as Kartik. Kartik is a special time in the Vaishnav calendar because in Kartik there are many pastimes, many festivals that come up in Kartik. Many of you will recognize this pastime, the Damodar pastime. And you see, when you come to the temple in the early mornings or in the afternoons after around 4 p.m., you see in the temple room, you can come up to the altar, you can come up to the deities and offer a candle. Well, using the right hand. You can offer a candle to the deities. And what we're doing there is signifying that, okay, we're offering the light back to Krishna, back to the deities, and we're circumambulating the deities with our hands, with the lamp, to basically say that we want to make Krishna the center of our life as well. That's a really nice special thing that we can do. But there are other pastimes that actually occur in Kartik. Just a picture of Mayapur and their candle offering there. For those who are interested, this is Mayapur. But another pastime that many people will be very familiar with is the return of Ram to Ayodhya. And we celebrate that as Diwali. Diwali. It's this idea that after Ram has killed and defeated Ravan, he's now coming back home. And everybody at home is waiting for God to return home. And in that way, we're also waiting for God to return, for God to come, and we're inviting God to come back to our lives. But another thing that we have is Govardhan Puja. Now, those who are Gujaratis among us will recognize it as Anukot festival, the New Year, the Anukot festival, where you put masses of piles of hills of food in front of the Lord. But what we're doing there is really offering food back to Govardhan, offering food back to Krishna, because the pastime goes that Krishna had lifted the Govardhan hill with the tip of his left hand, pinky finger, to save all the Vrajvasis from torrents of rain, from from storms and from winds. And so he didn't get to eat for 7 days and 7 nights. And his mother would feed him not once a day, not twice a day, not 3 times, but 8 times a day. And so traditionally you would offer Chappan Bhog, which is 56 meals, 56 food items to Krishna. That's a lot. I don't know if my stomach could handle 56, but he's God, so he can handle 56 items in one go. But like this, you'll see in many temples around the world, the manor, you see in other temples as well, you'll see food items being just offered in mass quantity in front of the deities. And the talk that I've decided for today is based on this verse. It's from the Puranas. Let's see if I can read it from here. Shuklashtam kartiketu smita gopashtami budhe tadginad vishnudho bud gopa purvam tu vatsapa. In English. And we'd like to read English? Would you like to read English?
The 8th lunar day of the bright fortnight of the month of Kartika is known by authorities as Gopashtami. From that day, Lord Vasudeva served as a cowherd, whereas previously he had tended the cows.
Thank you very much. So Gopashtami is a day where Krishna becomes a herder of cows. Almost like you can say he graduated from herding the calves. The calves are the small cows, the baby cows. And the cows are the mother, the big cows. And Gopashtami this year, because we celebrate all the festivals on the Vedic calendar, Gopashtami this year actually fell on Saturday last week. So I was thinking, when I was asked to do this talk, I was thinking, okay, what topic should I pick? And I was thinking, it would be nice to do something about the cows since we've got the Goshala here. We had Gopashtami last week. So I thought, okay, it would be a nice topic for today to discuss cows, to discuss cow protection. and why cows are so important to us in the Vaishnav culture. So here you can see Krishna and his brother Balram with a number of cows. And Gopashtami is a day where Krishna, up until that point, up until Gopashtami, Krishna was just tending to the calves. And what that means is that he would basically play with the calves. He would be given charge of looking after the calves, almost like, you know how children will have toy kitchens, toy houses, things like that. A smaller model of the bigger thing. And Krishna was given the calves to look after because the calves are easier to look after than the cows. The calves just play all day, and then they have their milk, their time for food, their time for milk, and they're just in close vicinity. They're just around the house, maybe a small part away. And so Krishna and his friends won't go too far, and Krishna gets an experience of what it's like to be responsible, a responsible young adult at the age of 5. But then when Krishna turns 6, which is described as Bokanda age, then he goes to his father and mother, he goes to Nand Maharaj and Yashoda and goes, Mama, Papa, I'm ready to herd the cows. People say I'm responsible, I've grown up, I'm strong, I can now take care of the cows. And Nand Maharaj is thinking, okay, you're still quite young, but I know last time we spoke, you asked to herd the cows. So this time, maybe I should give it, because last time I tried to give you the calves instead. And so Nand Maharaj and Yashoda are discussing and thinking, okay, fine, let's give it a go. Let's see how Krishna and his friends tend the cows this time. And so Krishna is like, yes, okay, now I get to tend to the cows. And what that means is that, as you've probably seen in the Goshala, there's many fields that are required by the cows. Now, I don't know how many cows we've got at the Goshala, maybe somebody in the room knows, but it's probably up to maximum 50 or so. But it's described that Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. Imagine the amount of land that they would need to graze. But Krishna was ready for the challenge. He was like, okay, I've got the cows, I'm going to graze them. And that means that he would have to travel a fair bit away. He'd have to travel like an hour or two away from where he stays in Vrindavan. And seeing this, thinking, okay, on the first day that he is about to tend to the cows, his mother Yashoda is thinking, okay, my son has soft feet, and up until now he's just been playing and tending to the calves in the local area, but now he's going to go further out. He's going to go onto the mountain or the hills of Govardhan, where there are thorns, where there are stones, there are pebbles in the way, on the path. So naturally a mother's thinking, I don't want my son, my child to injure their feet. So she's thinking, okay, maybe I should make some shoes, make some footwear for my child. So she makes some footwear, and as soon as as Krishna is about to leave home to go and start his first day at work at the age of 6, she's thinking, okay, I'm going to come out and give him these shoes, this footwear. And Krishna's like, this is an amazing idea. The feet are so soft and they need to be looked after, because I want to graze and I want to tend to the cows for years and years. So it's a really nice idea. Can you bring the shoes of the cows as well? And Yashoda's thinking, they don't need shoes. Your feet are the ones that are soft. You're the one that's a small child. They don't need the shoes. But Krishna is thinking, calculating, my father has 900,000 cows. They have 4 feet. If I only have 2 feet and they're soft and they need to be protected and cared for, imagine their feet. And so he's going to Yashoda Ma, like, 900,000 cows, 4 feet. I can't do the math. You do the math. You tell me how many shoes we need. And so Yashoda's thinking, like, this is impossible. Like, I can't get that many pairs of shoes. And so she gives up. She gives up the idea of Krishna wearing shoes. And she goes, okay, you go. Your cows aren't going to get shoes. You're not going to take shoes. So, okay, just go. Just go. And here we see Krishna. For those at the back, you can probably see better, or at least even those in the front, just not on the stage. You can see this is Krishna's feet with the cows, walking with the cows. And it's funny because as it's described in the scriptures that the yogis, the mystics, the jnanis, those who are very learned in the scriptures, are constant, even the devotees, even those of us who are trying to attain love of God, love of Krishna, we're all searching for Krishna's feet. We're all trying to chase his feet. And here is Krishna with his lotus feet going behind the cows. And his feet are naked, his feet are bare. Why? Because the cows didn't get shoes. So you can see just from there how much Krishna loves the cows. And we have this very famous prayer that we recite from the Purana. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha Jagatitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. In English it says, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, who is the worshipful deity for all Brahmanical men, who is the well-wisher of cows and brahmanas, and who is always benefiting the whole world. I offer my respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, known as Krishna and Govinda. It's a very famous prayer that we recite daily, actually, for those of us who come to the manor often or who are serious in our spiritual life. And we see the part in blue. He's a well-wisher of the cows and the brahmanas. And for those who have read Krishna book or have heard of the stories of Krishna, we see that there are many, many different pastimes of Krishna, many different stories of Krishna with the cows. When he's a very small young child, we see he's playing with the cows and calves. He's pulling on the tails of the cows, and sometimes he's pushing the calves aside whilst they're drinking milk, and himself puts his mouth underneath the udder of the cow to suck the milk. Such sweet pastimes. Then others which we see when the cows are in danger is described twice, that they go to the forest because they're obviously grazing in the hills, and sometimes there's a forest fire for various reasons, and it's two specific incidents are described in the Krishna book. And Krishna, seeing that the cows are in distress, he swallows the fire to save the cows. And then my beads are in my bag, but you'll see this scene a lot, especially around the temple. You'll see people with a weird-looking bag in the hand, and they're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Because inside that bag they have beads. They have japa beads of 108 malas. And then on there you'll also see counters sometimes, counter on the outside, just so that they can tell how many rounds they've done. So that's what we do. On beads we chant Krishna's names, because we want to try and connect to Krishna. It's described that Krishna also had beads. His beads are not tulsi beads. His beads are described to be made of emeralds, precious gems, jewels, and things like that. And on those beads, he chants the names of his cows. At the end of the day, when it's ready, it's time to go back home, he takes his beads out and he starts chanting the names or calling out the names of his cows. He remembers all 900,000 names of the cows. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I struggle to even remember 5 new faces and names. So if you're going to speak to me afterwards, then please don't be offended if I ask you your name like 10 times. But Krishna remembers all 900,000 names because that's how precious they are. And we can understand this. If something or somebody is really important to us, we remember things to do with them. And that's how important the cows were to Krishna. He has beads to chant the names of the cows, and he remembers all 900,000. And so from this, I wanted to take one first lesson before we really get into protection of cows in some degree. We can see that Krishna really loves the cows, because we can see that he's willing to take all and any sorts of trouble for the cows. He's willing to go barefoot on the hills and the mountains where he's risking thorns, pebbles, stones entering his soft feet, soft, tender feet. All because the cows didn't have shoes. And the second thing, and the chanting of the names. Where we chant the names of God, God is chanting the names of the cows. And so just from pastimes related to Krishna, we can see how precious the cows are to our spiritual culture. Of all animals, Krishna has shown so much affection and love to the cows. Now, the other thing that Antaranga Prabhu almost kind of gave away and spoke about are other spiritual reasons for why cows are considered to be holy in our culture. One thing is that cows are considered to be one of our 7 mothers. Chanakya Pandit, who is a great spiritualist from the past, and he was a great politician as well, he compiled this verse, or I don't know if he compiled it or if he got it from a Vedic source. But it's a verse that describes that there's 7 mothers that we all have. Who are they? Well, the first one on the top left, you can see is Adu Mata, the biological mother. The mother who gave birth to us, and generally for most people is also the mother who nurtures us, who helps us grow. Then the second, Guru Patni, or the Guru's wife. The Guru is somebody who's traditionally speaking, we would stay in the ashram, we would stay where the Guru is, and serve the Guru. And the Guru's wife would look after us, would nurture us, would take care of us. She'd be the one who gives us the compassion, the love, the care, while the Guru is giving us the strictness, the fatherly figure. Then the third one we see, Brahmin Patni, the saint's wife. A Brahmin is somebody who upholds dharma, or upholds religiosity and principles in society. And the the Brahmin's Patni, the saint's wife, is also the same. She supports that dharmic principle being withheld in society. So that's why she's also a mother, because she's upholding dharma in society for us. Then the fourth one we have is Rajapatni, the queen. Naturally, we can understand that the monarchy's role in society is to protect and care for the citizens. Even nowadays, that is there, but somewhat in the background now. But the role is to care for the citizens, to be that loving figure for all of society. Not just for the family, not just for our children, but for all of the kingdom. Then going round clockwise, you've got Prithvi, Mother Earth. Even non-Vaishnavas, even those not from a spiritual background, will call out Mother Earth. Why? Because we get so many resources, we get food, we get nourishment, we get supplements from Earth. Anything and everything we do is from Earth. So that's why she's a mother, because she's a giver. Then the next one is the Dhatu, or the nurse. When we're born, sometimes it's the mother or the father that holds us, but more often than not, it's the nurse that holds us and cares for us and takes care of us until the biological mother and father are ready to look after you. But even then, beyond birth, what happens when we go to the hospital? For those who have stayed in a hospital for more than a couple of hours, you know it's the nurse that's there to try and look after you. And I say try because sometimes you don't always have that experience, but that's their role, right? Is to look after us, care for us, make sure we have what we need. If something's gone wrong, then help patch it up or call the doctor and things like that. And so they're like a mother because they're caring for us. And then the last one you see is the cow. Why the cow? Because one thing that the mother gives us is milk. And the cow gives us milk. Through the cow's milk, so initially for human children, we will usually have breastfeeding. We'll drink the milk of our biological mother. But at some point, we'll shift to cow's milk more often than not. Because there's so many more minerals available in the cow's milk. There's so many more nutritions available. And that's why the cow is considered to be a mother in Vedic society. And what do we do with the mother? We protect the mother. We look after the mother. And then, as was mentioned briefly by Antaranga Prabhu, there's so many things that we get from the cow. Milk is just one aspect. But from that milk, we get butter, we get ghee, we get cheese, all these other things. But actually, all parts of the cow give us something. Even cow dung or cow urine is very valuable in Vedic society or Vaishnav society. But also, from a scientific perspective, cow's urine is considered to be one of the greatest antiseptic, it has one of the greatest antiseptic properties. So it's very good in medicinal purposes. Cow dung also, it's very antiseptic, and from a traditional perspective, there are many festivals in India where deities are actually created by cow dung. Nowadays, we don't do that so often. There are still some cultures that still do it. But I think Ganesh Chaturdashi, I think. But then Govardhan Puja that we had 2 weeks ago, traditionally people would make a Govardhan hill or Giriraj out of cow dung in India. So it's used in many spiritual functions or festivals, but also it's used in Ayurvedic sense from a medicinal perspective as well. So much we can get out of a cow. And then for those who are Indian among us, you'll be very familiar with a scene like this, a Kamadhenu cow, because it's described that actually this comes from the Puranas also. There are many references where different parts of the cow's body are associated to different demigods or different devatas. Like it's described that Agni is present in the mouth of the cow. It's described that Lakshmi is present in the cow dung because of how opulent, how much we can get out of the cow dung. Vayu is present in the cow's tail. And so many other parts of the cow are associated to different devatas and demigods. And so for these reasons, we see that the cow is very holy from a spiritual and from a Vaishnav perspective. And so cow protection is very, very important. Just from a pure spiritual perspective, but even when you consider the milk, from a modern perspective, we drink milk, we drink the cow's milk. So it's very, very important. So cows are our holy mothers. Because she gives us milk, and a mother we care for because she gives us milk. And therefore, protecting the cow is just like protecting our mother. And the third thing, I'll read. Yeah, and all the demigods are basically present in the cow. And that comes from the scriptures, that all the demigods are present in the cow, in the body of a cow. Like I mentioned, I gave a few examples of different demigods and where they're placed in the cow's body. So where does that leave us? Do we drop everything and just focus on cow protection? Just focus on looking after the cows? Not exactly. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says that I can be worshipped within the cows by offerings of grass and other suitable grains and paraphernalia for the pleasure and health of the cows. Protecting and caring and feeding the cows is very much part of Vaishnav culture. It's very much part of our spiritual culture. It's not just about, yes, we invite a silver cow at home and serve the silver cow, because oftentimes we do that in ritualistic ways. But actually it's about really going out of our way to serve the cows, because service to cows, from this verse we can see, is a spiritual connection with Krishna. And when we look at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, we see we're very fortunate to have a Goshala present. And why is the Goshala different to cow farms or commercialized farms? Because what you see in commercialized farms is that there's many, many cows, but very little land for them to graze. Oftentimes you see that the commercial cow farms will have many, many cows and many, many machines to milk the cows. And the machines will basically take the udder and literally squeeze and pull it. And oftentimes it can be painful. Imagine if somebody took your arm and just squeezed it with a machine, whereas if it was a human doing it, they could see, okay, this much pressure is paining, this much isn't, so this is good, this is bad. but the machines just cause the pain. What happens when the cows get old? They get sold off to a slaughterhouse so that the cows can then be killed and used as meat or whatever, use the cow hide, etc. So commercialized farms have this very natural tendency to objectify the cows. Cows are considered a commodity in commercial farms, whereas in Vaishnav culture, in something like the Goshala here, cows are considered to be very holy. In commercialized farms, cows are considered to be objects to milk and basically money-making machines. But for us, they're treated as mothers to be cared for and looked after. In commercialized farms, cows are seen as objects that once they get old, once they become useless, discard and dispose. But for us, when you see in the Goshala, at the back of the Goshala, there's an actual sanctuary for those who are elderly cows who don't produce milk anymore, but they're looked after and nurtured because they're mothers. Imagine your mother when she gets old and feeble and she's not able to fend for herself. Would you just go and discard her and go like, okay, I'll sell her off and get as much money as I can, sell her off, and then whatever happens, happens? No, we'd care for them, we'd protect them. And if we're unable to do so, we might consider seeing if somebody else has a better availability to care for them, to protect them. But we wouldn't just give them off to get murdered or killed in a sanctuary somewhere. And so that's why the Goshala, or projects like this Goshala that we have here, and around the world, ISKCON has many projects. There's also the Ahimsa farm, I think in Birmingham, Is it Birmingham? Leicester? Somewhere around there. Leicester. There's an Ahimsa farm in Leicester, which is trying to build a community of cows which are very much protected and cared for in a non-violent way, in a painless way. And so supporting these projects is an opportunity, it's a blessing for us in two things. One is we're seeing our compassionate side come out to serve the cows. But the other thing, as I showed up the verse, it's a way to spiritually connect with Krishna. And so at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, we actually have so many opportunities. You can see here a picture of a child feeding the cows, and maybe many of you have experience of this, where at the end of the talk or before the talk, when you come to the temple, you'll go to the Goshala, you'll pick up a bowl of vegetables or whatever is on offer that day to feed the cows. But you can actually do much more. You can see here another picture of a young teen, perhaps, serving the Goshala. There are many opportunities to come and clean the Goshala. There are many opportunities to come and wash the cows, to brush the cows' teeth, because they need their teeth brushing as well. If we do, then why don't they? But so many opportunities are there for us to serve. Or even if you don't feel like, okay, I can't do the practical thing, they could be there, being at the desk, supporting and serving in that way too. And another thing, which it's not very well known actually, I think, at the manor, is that you have the opportunity to see and experience what it's like milking the cows. The cows at the manor, I believe, are milked twice a day. One in the early morning and then one in the almost late evening. And you have the opportunity. Just as you walk towards the cows, you see that there's a nice windowed place with just before the actual cow barn area. And that's where they milk the cows. And you see, by doing all these activities in a very wholesome, in a loving way, the cows actually feel joyous. You see that if you went to a commercial farm versus the Goshala, the cows have a very different mood. You might think the cows look grumpy over here, but actually when they're out, when they're able to experience the patches of grass, etc., when it's summertime, etc., you see they're so joyous, they're so playful. In commercial farms, you can see that the mood is very low because they're not getting good quality food. The milking is not of a good quality. And ultimately, they know that in their heart, they feel, they recognize, just as we feel emotions of other people, they know also that actually something's not, they're not getting the love, the care that they feel like they should or would have somewhere else. And so what I want to end with also is that cows, or protecting the cows and looking after the cows, is actually a source of our spiritual connection. We see that Krishna very much encourages this service to cows. And at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, we are very fortunate to be able to have that experience of getting involved in serving the cows in different ways. So before I end, to 3 takeaways. Number 1, Krishna loves the cows. And I won't embarrass myself by saying moo. But that's the first part. Krishna loves the cows. There's so many pastimes. He is willing to go bare feet through thorns, through pebbles, through stones, because of how much he loves the cows. And if we're trying to connect with Krishna, how much more should we love the cows that Krishna loves so much? Second is that cows are one of our 7 mothers. If we see a cow as our mother, then think of how differently we would treat them, how differently we would consider their presence in our lives, their presence at the Goshala, the service opportunities that we can have for them. And the third thing is that if we want to get closer to Krishna, then we can get closer by serving the cows also. So, I will end there. I don't know what time it is. Does anybody have that? 11:30? Okay, so we have 12:30. So we have about 20 minutes if people want to comment, share anything, ask questions. And we'd like to share thoughts on their experience with the cows at the Goshala.
Is that why we do the Gopala to them?
That's a really nice question. Is the reason why many people do Govardhan Parikrama. So Govardhan Parikrama is basically circumambulating the hill of Govardhan. It's, I think, 26 miles long or something. Somebody can correct me. But it's a very long time. It takes many hours to basically circumambulate. People do it in different ways. Some people do it via rickshaw. Some people do it by walking with shoes on. Some people do it bare feet. I don't know if that's the reason why, or one of the reasons, but the main reason why we circumambulate bare feet is because it's a sign of respect as well. Govardhan or Vrindavan is a very special place. For those of us who know, it's because of Krishna's pastimes. But actually it's special because of the pastime that I described with Krishna's feet. When you look at Mathura, which is where Krishna appeared, then he never placed his feet in Mathura. What happened when Krishna came into the world is that he was immediately carried and taken to Gokul, which is a part of Vrindavan. So he never placed his feet there. For those of us who are Gujaratis and say Krishna is Aproche Krishna, right? Because he's from Dwarka, right? Because he has Dwarkadish. Dwarka is that part of Krishna's life where he got married and he basically ruled a kingdom. He became a king. And as a king, he wore very opulent clothes, but also very opulent shoes. So when he's walking around Dwarka, he's wearing shoes. Vrindavan and the nearby places like Govardhan are the only places where Krishna goes bare feet. So we consider Vrindavan to be such a special place for those from a Vaishnava background because of Krishna's pastimes being there, because Krishna performed all these leelas, or he was physically there. But it's so much more special because Krishna went everywhere barefoot. So, yeah, you could link it to that. You could even meditate on the fact that Krishna went bare feet. How could I go in shoes? If Krishna took the austerity to go bare feet because of the cows, how could I simplify everything just because of my own comfort and convenience. If Krishna could go bare feet with his soft 6-year-old feet, thorns, pebbles, stones, then it's an encouragement for us to go, actually, let's try it. So yes, nice question. I don't think I answered the question, but hopefully I gave some sort of insight. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna. I'd like to know, how long do cows live for? What is the age?
I wish I knew. You know? It's 20, I think.
So basically, I know a lot of cows here. They'll get some of the oldest ones get to like 20. And then you have 4. And whereas on dairy farms, you find that they don't probably make it past 5 or 6.
Thank you. Yeah, that reminds me of the dairy farms. It's interesting because cows can live for much longer than the 5-6 years. But what ends up happening is that because of, like we can understand in our life as well, we understand that if we're in stressful situations, if we're in full of anxiety, then people's life shortens. You actually see it. You can see it in their bodily, in their facial features and everything. You can see that they're getting much older than they are. Sometimes you may have experience of somebody who's like 20 years old, but they look 30, 40 because of the amount of stress and anxiety they're going through day in, day out. And the same happens with cows and their bodies. But the other factor is with the dairy farms, maybe you might want to add something else. But the fact that they are basically seen as objects and commodities to basically take advantage of until they become a liability, then they're milked so hard that their lifespan kind of goes. And what ends up happening is that cows only stay on the dairy farm for as long as the milk is beneficial. And by that, it doesn't mean that they no longer are able to give milk, but there's a prime amount of years that they can give prominent milk. And then once that starts depleting, that's when they're like, okay, this cow is kind of no more use. And then they get sold to the slaughterhouse. And when you look at financials, dairy farms don't make much money from the milk. They make much more money from selling the cows to the slaughterhouse. And that's scary. When you think about it, that's scary because all the dairy farms, we think we're, okay, buying milk and that's the way they make money, right? Because that's what we see. We see that, okay, millions of gallons of milk probably get sold each day. I don't know how many. But that's not their main source of income. The main source of income is selling the cows to the slaughterhouses after the 5-6 years. So that's why projects like the Ahimsa Farm, like the Goshala and Goshalas around the world are very, very important, because from a spiritual perspective, but also from a compassionate perspective, we wouldn't want our mothers to just go, okay, you've reached the age where you're no longer useful in the house, I'm just going to sell you off and then they can do whatever they want. We wouldn't do that to our mothers. So why would we do that to other animals? And cows being a provider of milk, as a mother for us. So important. Did you want to add anything else? Yes. Yes, the steroids, yes. Yes, thank you for sharing. So just because I know the mic wasn't so strong, but he was basically sharing how in the dairy farms, in the commercial farms, they're fed steroids to then expand the amount of milk that they produce in a short amount of time. So yeah. Any thoughts, comments? Yes. Sure.
I was reading this, I think I just have a comment. So, thinking about about the next suffering. I think commercial dairy farms actually are a lot cruel than meat industry or even slaughterhouses, and I think that's because the prolonged kind of suffering that cows are exposed to. So, for example, someone mentioned steroids, but if you look into dairy farms and kind of the milk that comes in the superstores, a lot of the cows are kind of repeatedly impregnated, so they keep producing milk because obviously they need to produce milk if they are either lactating or like they got to give birth. And a lot of the times so if it's a cow, if it's a female, it's definitely a cow, and if it's not, most of the time it's going to be slaughterhouse. So I do think that obviously not all of us live near a gaushalla, not all of us have access to kind of cruelty-free milk. I do think that makes more sense to just not have people with this own milk and just be plant-based in that sense, because that just has the least amount of suffering attached to it. Yeah.
No, it's a nice point. So I guess the point being raised is what's the practical step that we can take as individuals to try and reduce the suffering, trying to reduce the demand of this dairy milk that's commercialized, that's full of cruelty. And yeah, it's a very nice option to basically choose to avoid that milk or those milk products that we know is coming from these cruel places. And yeah, it's an option. I'm not here to say that everybody should become vegan. I think there's, as Antaranga Prabhu was sharing, milk is very valuable for really taking in spiritual knowledge. But at the same time, we can look at the quality of the milk that we're getting. And I think for each and every one of us, there's a certain level of consciousness that will develop after hearing about. Actually, let me take a step back. When you look at spiritual knowledge, it's not just about, okay, it was a nice talk and then let's go home, let's just go back to day-to-day life. Spiritual wisdom has four parts to it. One is shravanam, which is hearing. But the second is mananam, which is contemplating on what we've just heard. Thinking about what does this mean? Like, so what's your name? Pratna. Like Pratna was saying. She was sharing her own reflection that actually all this is, there's so much cruelty in the dairy industry, maybe better we don't, or I don't drink milk from that place. But then the third thing is nididhyasanam, which is applying it into life. Okay, we've had that thought, now let me put the steps and let me make the steps to make that my reality. But the fourth thing is vandanam, which can also be called pratna, which is prayer. It's praying to Krishna for help, for guidance. And for all of us, that might look different. It might manifest in different ways for all of us. So some people may decide that actually, you know what, milk is such a crucial element to my diet and it's so valuable to offer to Krishna. But yes, I understand that there's cruelty going on, but actually I'll donate much more to ahimsa farms, to goshalas and things, but still continue to drink the milk. Some people may decide that I'll switch my milk to ahimsa or organic milk or something that's or organic, which is slightly better, or ahimsa milk, which is even better. But then they cost more as well. So there's always a balance, but yeah, it's a really nice point. And maybe that's a point we should all consider. What's the practical step we'll take to serve the cows in a better, more wholesome way, to give them that love? For some, it might mean that we sign up to Goshala service. For others, it might mean that, okay, we turn away from the milk. And for others, it might mean that, okay, we just look at alternative sources of the milk. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add on top of that comment. Thank you. Any more? Any more questions, comments, thoughts? Would anybody like to share their experience of the Goshala? How many have been to the Goshala? Or like offered food to the cows? Okay, quite a few. Would anybody like to share? Yeah? Okay. I don't know if that's the father volunteering with the son, or the son volunteering with the father, but I'll let them decide. If you just hold it up.
It's just we had a nice experience like 3 times from the beginning. I have got 4 years, and then we have 4 years, 4 months. So that's time came here, we already started to go in Gopala. And he has a very nice impression. Every time he comes, we always spend 20, 25 minutes. And that is a very nice experience. We see the old cow, we see the small cow, everything. We have a nice experience.
It'll be nice to hear.
He's being shy. He's able to speak in assembly and
No, thank you for sharing. It's nice that you've came.
what I from Portugal, I heard that in Spain there is a very, very big ocean. I think it also very
Yes, I forget what it's called. Does anybody know the name? Nava Vrajamandala.
It's a really huge place.
Yes, it is. It's a massive project. No, thank you for sharing. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
In my childhood in India, we used to have 2 or 3 cows and cows in our backyard, basically in the house. Not a big house, but a big backyard. And we used to enjoy feeding them, even milking them from time to time, and having fresh milk from theirs. Some of my relatives had carried on with the tradition, but after moving to England, I couldn't because of the work. So those were opportunities I was certainly then to at least visit some small goshalas or mini goshalas at people's houses. They're still in villages and not in cities now, which is important.
No, thank you for sharing it. Yeah, it's very valuable to be able to do. In India especially, it's very valuable to be able to serve the cows at home. And I remember when I went to Vrindavan, then we'd go to some villages and you'd see that they have one cow or one buffalo or one animal tied. Even if it's a very poor house, they recognize the value of serving the cows. And I guess I'll make my last point, which is that even from a health perspective, from a mental health perspective, serving the cows is so valuable because psychologically, you can probably elaborate on this. But we can see that there's therapy from taking care of animals. What would happen in some old places or hospitals and stuff, you'll see that animals will be taken, dogs, cats, small animals will be taken. But cows are so much more valuable because they just give that pure mode of goodness, that vibe to be looked after and cared for. And that is very therapeutic for our mental health. So even from that perspective, even if you don't care about Krishna, even if you don't care about the spirituality, even if you don't care about your mother, but purely even from a therapeutic perspective, it's good for us. So I'll end there. Thank you for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.